Hello viewers, me na Justice E.M. Tishan from KID-AFAN and this is the program Salone Discoveries. Today again we come na the Ministry of Information and Communication. It's every week, Thursday, making only press briefing for updates the public concerning issues or things in the way different ministry, agency, departments and can do. Well, today again we did also for can witness whose ministry, agency or departments get for come na the Ministry of Information for can update the public.
Is a fulfillment of the 2018 SLPP Manifesto Promise and a commitment in the Medium-Term National Development Plan 2018 to 2023 made by His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. The purpose of the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act is to address the gender imbalances by making provisions for increased appointments of women to decision-making positions and structures so as to achieve at least 30% representation, to provide for the promotion of gender equality in employment and training, to provide for the implementation of gender mainstreaming and budgeting, to provide for the implementation of provision for financial institutions to prescribe procedures for the improvement of women's access to finance and to provide for other related matters. Before we go into the benefits for the country and for women, let's just give a little background. Why did we do this? Why are we doing this? Sierra Leone, as it stands today, has a gender inequality index value of 0.644 and ranked 153 out of 165 countries. The gender inequality index is a metric that shows the loss in potential human development due to the disparity between females and male achievement. While gender inequality is a universal issue in Sierra Leone, today in Sierra Leone, men earn 3 times more than women in wage employment, 2.5 times more in self-employment, and 2 times more in agriculture. Also today, in 2018, only 17 women out of 146 parliamentarians were elected. And at local level, female representation decreased from 19% in 2012 to 17% in 2018. Also in 2019, 62% of women 18 to 14 reported having experienced physical or sexual violence. So that is the background. That is why it was necessary to come up with this law. As a result of this, the executive arm of government, led by His Excellency the President, recognized the disparity and so showed his commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment as a means of attaining sustainable peace and social and economic development in the country. This commitment, which includes human capital development, free quality education, and youth participation, are the bedrock that anchors the visionary leadership of His Excellency the President. Evidence of this commitment can be found in the Medium-Term National Development Plan and also SILNAC 2, which strengthens women's efforts in conflict prevention, resolution, and peace building, while providing early response mechanisms for addressing sexual and gender-based violence in conflict and non-conflict situations. And also, Another demonstration of commitment is the creation of the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs in November 2019, with the sole responsibility for leading the planning, development, implementation, and monitoring of all issues relating to women and children below 18. Driven by this unanimous goal, the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs developed the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Policy in 2022. The policy was graciously launched by His Excellency the President. The policy describes 13 policy objectives across 10 sectors. To implement this GIWI policy, the Ministry adopted 2 key approaches. 1, mainstreaming. We have been leading the integration of gender requirements into every new and revised legal instrument. You would see that from the Lands Act that was recently enacted, there was a big provision there for women. That was part of our mainstreaming efforts. Also 2, direct implementation. We are also directly discharging women's empowerment initiatives across the entire country. The recent MCC scorecard depicts the gender in economy indicator as red, but the graph shows an upward turn with over 30% increase, which was possible from a combination of efforts. 1, the adoption of the GIWI policy, and 2, implementation of economic empowerment projects for women. However, with the enactment of this new law now, which prohibits gender discrimination, addresses equal pay for work of equal value, improves access to finance for women, Sierra Leone will now pass this indicator. Emanating from this policy, the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Policy 2020 is the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act. So the act came out from the policy. On the 21st of October 2021, I, the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs, introduced the bill in Parliament and conducted the first reading. That was October 2021. The Honourable House of Parliament, in its wisdom, directed me to conduct an extended national consultation exercise on the bill. As directed by the House, the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs developed an inclusive consortium of partners comprising interest groups, NGOs and CSOs, and led the consortium to undertake an extensive national consultation exercise. The exercise reached over 10,000 men and women, principally through 2 approaches. 1, digital consultations through social media platforms, and B, in-person meetings across all 16 districts. The ministry also held consultations with individual parliamentarians, the leadership of Parliament, Parliamentary Gender Committee, and the Parliamentary Female Caucus. Engagements with the National Electoral Commission and the Political Party Registration Commission were also undertaken. Significant recommendations from those consultations were adopted by the ministry and shared with partners and interest groups for consensus. So on Wednesday, the 9th of November 2022, 1 year later, I presented the consultation report to Parliament and conducted the second reading. Thereafter, the bill was sent to the Legislative Committee. The committee met on Saturday, the 12th November. And again on Tuesday, the 15th November, the Legislative Committee, headed by the chairman, Honorable More Conte, presented the committee's report to Parliament, and I conducted the third reading, and the bill was passed into law. So what does this act mean for Sierra Leone and for the women? First and foremost, as has been said by so many people, this is a historic piece of legislation. It is a groundbreaking law. It affirms President Julius Maada's Bio unwavering commitment to placing women at the center of national development, to transforming the lives of women, to providing for the statutory employment, to the representation of women, to promoting and protecting women's rights, and to creating a progressive Sierra Leone. This act will create over 5,000 jobs for women. The act addresses gender imbalances with a specific focus on women in the following ways. At least 30% representation in cabinet. While the Constitution protects the powers of the President to freely select his cabinet, the Act encourages the President to ensure at least 30% to be women. At least 30% representation in Parliament. This is in conjunction with the Public Elections Act, Section 59, which states that nominations should include a woman in every 3 names. At least 30% of all appointments in diplomatic service will be women. At least 30% of all appointments in local councils will be women. At least 30% of all appointments in the civil service will be women. At least 30% of all appointments in private institutions with 25 or more employees will be women. Maternity leave extended from 12 weeks to 14 weeks. Financial inclusion included. The bill will give powers to the Ministry of Finance and also to the Bank of Sierra Leone to come up with new methodologies to increase access to finance for women. Mainstreaming gender requirements across all sectoral policies and legal frameworks. This is an important and extremely important provision. What it means is that every sector, every ministry is now mandated by the law to ensure that their policies include the gender demands. For example, if agriculture is doing their sectoral policy, or they must review their sectoral policy to include in there that beneficiaries should be a minimum of 30% should be women. Gender responsive budgeting. This has already been accepted by the Ministry of Finance as the way forward, but now it's mandated by law that the Ministry of Finance national budgets should be done in a gender responsive budgeting format. The Act prohibits sexual harassment as stipulates in the Sexual Offences Act 2019. The Act also prohibits dismissal from work due to pregnancy. The Act mandates the creation of a multi-sectoral gender steering committee to oversee the implementation of this Act. What are the next steps? The Act is to be assented by the President, signed by the President, so we are going to be pushing for that to be done as soon as possible. Thereafter, the Ministry will lead the development of the regulations, what will guide the implementation of the Act. Once those procedures have been carried out, then we will commence the mass communication of popularizing the Act across the entire country. As a ministry, we will not be able to do that all by ourselves, so we will bring our partners together and form a consortium or a network so that we can populate and disseminate the information across the country. So let me end by saying, by using this opportunity to thank His Excellency the President, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, for his commitment to the empowerment of women and the support that he's given to the process of gender equality. This is a huge opportunity for women, and this is also a very important point. I urge all women to take this seriously and start to prepare themselves to take advantage of these opportunities that are presented in this Act. The ministry, my ministry, the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs, will continue to lead the gender agenda in Sierra Leone and to ensure the full implementation of this Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act. Thank you.
Well, that's now Madam Mamti Tarawali, the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs, we don't highlight on the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Act bill where they don't pass into law in Parliament, and as they don't discuss what's in the bill about and how happy them as women then feel concerning this lawyers who wouldn't just don't pass in Parliament. Well, maybe we bring you this program, me and Justice E.M. Tijan, and I want to say plenty thank you to my executive producer Dr. Aisatuka Kejalo and to my cameraman Mohammed Sky Bangora. So till we meet again, I want to say peace.